What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Long Run Podcast. This is Adam, and I'm joined by some of my favorite people in the entire world, and we're going to be reviewing one of the newest internet sensations in Cobra Kai. But before we even get to there, I'm really excited to introduce the people that we're going to have on the podcast today. We got some returning favorites, some familiar faces, but we also have some people making their brand new, podcast debuts, which I'm really excited about. To start off with, of course, we have none other than Mark, returning from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the Jurassic Mark, the resident professional. How you doing today, brother?
Howdy, sweep the leg, get him a body bag, etc.
This man clearly knows what we're going to be talking about today. And of course, joining us as well from the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood review is going to be Andrew, the fan who graduated to being on the podcast itself. How you doing today, brother?
Strike first, strike hard, no mercy.
Oh, man, this guy lives and breathes Cobra Kai. Of course, joining him, though, and joining the rest of us, I should say, is someone who is making his podcast debut, the voice of the best fans in the world in Five Deadly Venoms. It is none other than Padromi. How you doing today, brother?
What's going on, y'all? Happy to be here. If I say wax on, wax off, is that too cheesy or am I still
Nah. We welcome that. We welcome that. Hey, listen, there might be some people who actually don't know about that because they didn't watch the original movie, which is kind of crazy to think about. And finally, of course, last but certainly not least, we have Abby making her podcast debut, otherwise known as Sherlock Homie. And trust me, you've probably seen her around. She's been on Vancouver Titans in the Overwatch League, Tespa, Nerdist, Geek and Sundry. She's someone of many, many talents. How you doing today?
I'm really excited to talk about the Karate
Hell yeah,
Kid.
we're gonna talk about some nerd shit, right, Abby?
Yes.
That's what I like to hear. So, of course, today we're going to be talking about Cobra Kai, the sequel to the original Karate Kid series. Karate Kid, obviously known especially for that first movie, really an all-time classic. Everyone, we've already quoted so many things from that movie, whether it be strike hard, strike fast, whether it be wax on, wax off, whether it be bonsai. It is something that is very much loved and definitely a part of that kind of 80s pantheon. And of course, this Cobra Kai series follows up all of those original movies almost in real time, like 30 years later. And we even had the original cast coming in with Ralph Macchio as Daniel and William Zabka as Johnny. And even some people that show up later in the season who are reprising their roles, who I think a lot of people were excited about. Of course, it introduces new characters and it really just picks up on where their lives are 30 years later. At first, Cobra Kai, though, many people know about it through Netflix now. It actually was on YouTube Red first before it made its way to Netflix, where I'm sure many of us, including myself, really first watched it. But before we even get into that, I'd love to hear all of you. What was your original experiences with the original Karate Kid? Have you seen the movie? What do you think about it? Did you watch the sequels, including the one with Jaden Smith? Tell me more about that.
I saw the first one, and I liked it a lot, and I never really bothered to check out any of the others.
Respectable. It is the all-time classic. What about you, Andrew?
All right, so I have seen the original too many times to count. I refuse to watch the sequels. My brother loves the sequels. I'm not a sequels fan for most movies, unless it's like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
The Jaden Smith one, I gave that one a chance. I only watched it once because Jackie Chan was in it. I could care less about Jaden Smith, but did not put him on the same spectrum as the original. Original is by far a classic, as you said, and just can't be compared to.
Yeah, I saw all of them, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. I'm a huge fan of the entire series, the entire universe that is the Karate Kid. I'm not gonna say they were all great because they weren't, but they all had their own charm in their own respective rights.
Definitely.
But yeah, I mean the OGG original it's just the best.
Definitely. How about you, Abby?
Very problematic from everyone. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the first one, which is a 80s classic, no doubt. Seen the second and the third, never seen the fourth. Do not remember if I saw the Jaden one, which I feel like is not a good sign.
Probably not. Probably not. I've seen all the Karate Kid movies. I've even seen the intro to the Karate Kid animated series. I have no idea if Cobra Kai is actually going to be incorporating that. Yeah, no idea if it's going to be incorporating that into the canon. I don't know if that's canon because apparently they do some wild stuff in there, like finding a magical sword from China or something. But
what?
Yeah.
Right. Season 3, that's where we're going.
Oh my God. Imagine though.
Kreese has found the ghost sword. What will happen to LaRusso Auto Group now?
Oh no. You've already listen. They're gonna contact you soon, Mark. Watch out for that DM.
Flat tires. Flat tires.
Yeah, man. I have to agree with a lot of you. I think the first one is really the only one that's an all-time classic. Everyone knows about it. It's probably the most well-made one. Padromi kind of hits the nail on the head that the other ones like are good in some parts. They are what they are, kind of thing. It's the second one. He goes to Okinawa with Mr. Miyagi, then it turns into this family drama and all this crazy stuff. But I think overall, people were really surprised because after that 2010 one where they tried to revive it with Jaden Smith, which certainly did not work out well. The fact that Abby doesn't even remember it, I think, is really just a reflection of everyone else's opinion on it. It came back, and interesting enough, Will Smith is actually an executive producer on Cobra Kai. So it shows that he's yeah. So he's still actually invested into the series.
I never made that connection.
Yeah.
That makes
That's
a lot more
awesome.
sense now.
Yeah. So none of us were expecting it, right? But what were all of your reactions when you first heard about Cobra Kai, whether it be through Netflix or YouTube Red?
Yeah, I was definitely excited. Like I mentioned before, like since I saw all the different series, now I watched it through Netflix because I don't have YouTube Red, so I definitely had to wait, obviously. But
Yeah.
I'm definitely excited for it. You know, growing up watching this movie as a young kid, my mom and her girlfriends were like obsessed with Ralph Macchio. I mean, this was the guy they had posters up on their walls and like their obsessions. So I was definitely like very excited to see it return. I definitely didn't tell my mom this was back. I don't know if she knows that this is on Netflix yet because she might leave my dad. But yeah, all in all, I was super geeked out. I've been on a karate movie kick recently, so this definitely like fed into that.
I'm gonna be honest. I was not expecting to hear anyone have posters of Ralph Macchio up,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I'm really happy that I heard that. I'm really
Like,
happy.
they get together sometimes and we talk about old movies like The Warriors and Karate
Yeah.
Kid. Every time they always, oh, that Ralph Macchio. I'm like, oh my god.
I'm just picturing like a Tiger Beat poster, but it's current day Ralph Macchio, like in
Good
his little
work.
suit.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm really happy that someone is someone that's like such an ardent fan. I think you're gonna bring a lot to this review. But for the rest of you, what were your reactions when you first heard like Cobra Kai was a thing?
It was a big like, oh, all right, because like YouTube Red, like I had no interest in getting premium YouTube at the time. So as far as I was concerned, I was like, all right, neat. I guess I'm probably never going to end up seeing it. But then it hit Netflix, and I had heard lots and lots of good things about how it was this great show. And I sat down and checked it out, and like 3 days later, I had watched every episode.
I think that's a story that's going to be true for a lot of us. For speaking for myself, I heard about it on YouTube Red just like Mark did, and just like him, I was like, yeah, that's cool, but I'm definitely not
Sure.
going to pay for YouTube Red. I'm good, bro. But then once it came onto Netflix, I was like, okay, like let's just give the show a shot. And I think I watched both seasons within like 3 days, kind of thing, like just
Oh, yeah.
like completely straight through.
Easy binge.
Oh yeah, it definitely did the real binge. But what were the rest of you? Did you guys have any strong reactions when you heard Cobra Kai? Is there anything else you want to mention there?
No, totally. Because the biggest thing for YouTube Red is I think this was its flagship title.
Oh yeah,
Kind of when it
Yeah.
launched, because it was the biggest franchise that they had
Mhm.
when the system as a streaming service was like, here's our library. And it's like, oh my God, there's a sequel to The Karate Kid with the real cast who've also aged in time.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a huge marketing point. I actually will admit that I did their free trial back in 2018 to watch the series because I was so invested. And now I've been rewatching on
Nice.
Netflix.
Nice. What about you, Andrew?
So I heard about it so many times, especially from people at work. A lot of people at work actually watch it because of our coworker Matt. He was referring everyone to watch the show, and he came up to me because he knew that I was a huge Karate Kid fan, and he was like, "Dude, if you love the Karate Kid, I'm telling you, you got to watch the show." And I would be like, "Yeah, well, like kind of like interested, but not really like invested into it yet." He was like, "You know what? Just watch one episode. I bet you will be hooked." And it takes me a lot. It's not as easy for me to get hooked on shows as it is in movies. Like a movie, I'll go see once or twice if I like it. But a show, I need to be like absolutely interested to be hooked on it. With after watching the first episode, I was like, oh my gosh, like it's only 30 minutes. What the heck? Like I gotta watch the second episode. Second episode was amazing, and by the end of the day, I was on episode 7. I was like, okay, this show is absolutely awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, no, it seems like we're all in agreement. So spoiler alert, it seems like we all pretty much like the show, considering we all binged it. But I guess just opening the floodgates, what did you all think of the show? What was your reaction, especially once you, like Andrew said, when you start getting really into it, it kind of just goes by. So what are your general thoughts on the show? Like, how did it hit you? No pun intended.
That was good, Adam.
Pun was intended though.
But was it?
It hit me with no mercy. That's
all
that's what
right,
happened.
this is turning into that show, isn't it?
No.
So yeah, but how did you guys feel? Like, what do you guys think of this show, especially season 1 in particular? Oh yeah, also full spoiler review right now. Like, we're gonna
Full
go full in.
spoilers.
So like, if you haven't
Absolutely.
seen season 1, we already told you like you should probably watch it. You go binge it if you want, but we're gonna go full spoilers here, so don't worry about that.
All right. So, oh, sorry.
No,
You
go for it, please, please, please.
Okay. So, thank you, man. So this show, I honestly would put on my top 10, not maybe, I'm not sure about top 5 list, but top 10 list as of right now of my favorite shows of all time. And
Ooh,
that might be a
Hmm.
little bit of a broad statement, but I'm very picky with shows, and just judging off of how much enthusiasm I have for this show, how many times I've told like my friends about it, and just like trying to get them invested into it as well, and the fact that I want to rewatch season 1 with my girlfriend, who I'm trying to hype over this. Honestly, like I would give it a solid 10 out of 10, possibly even more, maybe an 11 out of 10. I just really, I it was so happy with the way that they did this show. I could not stress how great the directing was and how good the cast was for this show.
wow, high words of praise right out the gate from Andrew. Definitely excited to hear what everyone else thinks. Kind of just going off of that. Like, is everyone else at that fever pitch?
I was gonna say, Andrew, though, like you saying that, like it's like top 10 of all time. I think how astounding it is that it started as a web series,
Yeah,
technically.
yeah.
You know, so I think that's even kind of more cool about the development of this and like even the medium in which it was distributed through. But I'm on the same page. I think it's probably, I would say, the best sequel um, content that I've encountered recently in the past like 10 years of a traditional like franchise that is really well done and does service to all of its leads and its characters and their arcs.
Oh yeah,
100%. Yeah,
definitely.
I'm with you on the hype train.
Oh man, all aboard the hype train. It seems. All right,
Yeah.
Padromi, you're someone who's seen all of the movies. You're the resident Karate Kid super fan here. How did it strike you, taking into account the fact that you're such a big fan going into the series?
Yeah. So allow me to say that the nostalgia was real. I
Oh yeah,
mean, like on May, especially like having invested so many hours into the series and the franchise, like from watching all the movies, like they did such a great job. I mean, beyond the literal flashbacks that you
Mhm.
saw frequently throughout season
yeah,
1,
yeah.
like I just think that the way that they maintained the character integrity,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, I mean, granted, LaRusso got a little righteous for me. He did get a little righteous for me. But I will say, like, I loved Johnny Lawrence's
Yeah.
character.
Oh
I
yeah.
love that, like, they took this one defining moment in his karate career, and they were able to shape the rest of his life around it. And it wasn't even like, he obviously he was in a rough spot. Like he had just lost his job in the very beginning of the series, right? Like you know, Budweiser for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Not that there's anything wrong with that,
Yeah.
but like that's just really what it was
Coors
for him.
banquets.
Right, banquets, right? Thank you for the correction. Like, and of course, right, and like it was very interesting to kind of see that and to see like the lessons that were instilled in him and how that really motivated and pushed him forward. I was definitely getting flashbacks, and I think this time around, kind of like seeing the Cobra Kai message and what it means to Johnny. There is so much misinterpretation that goes on, and there's so many things that could have just been solved with a simple text message. Let's be
Oh
honest.
yeah. Well,
And
we'll talk about that. Don't worry.
yeah, and
We will. Don't worry.
I think things like that really kind of frustrated me throughout the series, just because like I'm a realist when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah.
However, as a fan of like Karate Kid, I was all in on this series. Like I'm with everyone else here. I think in terms of sequels, especially a sequel that's not a movie, like I think
Mm.
I think Sherlock Holmes made a great point. Bringing up the fact that like this was a web series at first. Like I think that's even more impressive. And
Yeah.
kudos to the directing and the writing. And I love this cast of kids. Like I thought they were fantastic.
Yeah. I think all of you are really hitting the nail on the head. For me, I think this is one of the best examples of what a great like spiritual successor looks like. Like in franchises, because it's just the world we live in. We see so many times people try and bring things back, right? And it just doesn't work. Whether it be we talk about RoboCop. How many times has Terminator tried to reboot? You insert thing here kind of thing, right? They've tried to bring it back and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I think something that's really good about Cobra Kai, and its relation to Karate Kid is how it really respects those characters. And like you could tell, the writers and directors are huge fans of the franchise, but it brings them forward in a direction that, while it can get, as Padromi said, just like fucking outrageous, just wild at times, it's still very, very core to those characters, and you care. Like you want to see where they go, you want to see what happens to them, and I think more than anything, that's one of those most important thing of why people care about this show. But I'm sorry, Mark, were you going to say something?
Oh yeah, no, I think it's really really good. It's not perfect, and it's not really showing me anything I've never ever seen before. But what it does exceptionally well. Especially as far as soft reboots go, because I was gonna say, because you were mentioning like respect to the characters and to
Yeah.
the franchise and all that, because season one in particular feels like somebody, like an executive came into their office and said, "Hey, we want to do a soft reboot of the Karate Kid. We want to do a new Karate Kid where now Daniel is the Miyagi, and now there's a new kid, and there's a new Cobra Kai, and it's the same thing as Karate Kid 1, but now it's the current year." And I could see exactly how that would play out, where it's like, okay, Daniel's the new Miyagi, and Johnny is the new Kreese, and then it's probably Daniel's daughter, but maybe her name is Danielle, so you could still call her Daniel-san, and it's like just the same movie over and over again. But they took all of the myriad little ideas that they had to do that, but make it not suck. They went that extra step further that not every soft reboot does. Because you look at a lot of the kind of nostalgia revivals we've been getting, and like you could write them in your sleep. It's you just put in stuff for the fanboys, get some of the original actors, even if they're retired, put them in there for 5 minutes so they'll get some, some clout, and there you go. You've got yourself another hit. But this one, they didn't have to do anything special with it. They could have just shit that out, and it would have made a comfortable amount of money, maybe got a sequel or two, and it'd been fine. But this, instead, it goes for something a little more ambitious and a little more interesting, and I think that's what really makes this stand out. This isn't just, oh, we're making a Karate Kid streaming series. This is its own thing that I think, honestly, like, I don't think anything could ever surpass the original Karate Kid, just because of how ingrained in pop culture it is.
Yeah.
The whole wax on, wax off, all that. But like, I could see this standing on its own. I could see in a couple of years somebody being like, "Oh yeah, I love Cobra Kai, but I've never seen Karate Kid." Like, you could probably find that person now. But it's a solid time. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I think that we're all kind of like hitting on this thing, right, of just how respectful it is of the original material, how it respects those characters. But really, even though the original is about, the original Karate Kid, I should say, is about Daniel, this show is really about Johnny. Like, don't get me wrong, Daniel plays a really, really large part in this show, but it's really all about Johnny and his kind of personal journey and his arc that he goes through. And to kind of like what we've alluded to, Johnny, like he's not had a good time. You know what I mean? Like he's like that guy. Like when you had a bully in high school and you like wish like the worst things upon him. That's basically what happened to Johnny. Like nothing worked out for him. Literally after that kick, it was like life just went on pause for him. Right?
Well, that was always the old joke. It's like her. Daniel was really the villain in the original Karate Kid. If
Yeah.
you look at it that way, he starts going after this guy's girlfriend, and then he just gets an old man, an adult, to beat up some teenagers. That's fucked up.
No, yeah.
And the show takes that gag and runs with it.
Yeah, and it even like kind of plays into it a little bit too. Padromi, I know you wanted to say something on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Like the comment got me fired up because like I thought like Danny was the villain in this series too. Because let's be honest, like every everything that Johnny does throughout this entire season is with good intent, except for the penis. Barring that, like everything was with good intent, and it was always misconstrued in some way, shape, or form. Like the guy just simply couldn't catch a break, and Danny, being who he was in the position that he was in, blew most of the things out of proportion, honestly.
Hmm.
I think him going out of his way to kind of try to shut Johnny down was pretty messed up. Like I don't think he deserved that. It was, you know, that's not what Miyagi would have done.
Yeah, yeah. I think one thing that really surprised me in this show is just we think that after the original Karate Kid, it's just like Daniel runs off in the sunset. He was taught by basically like Karate Yoda kind of thing, right? We all think that he's just going to turn out to be like this amazing person who just is basically Miyagi 2.0. But like watching this show, I think it shows how much one how important obviously Miyagi was, and I think they actually do a really good tribute to Pat Morita, Mr. Miyagi in the show. But I think it kind of shows just like how insecure I think Daniel is overall. Like there are so many times in the show where like he does things, and this is the reason why his wife is one of my favorite characters in the show. Is because there's so many times where she's us, where he's just like, "What the fuck are you doing? Why are you being a fucking idiot right now?"
Why are you so obsessed with the children's karate dojo in a strip mall?
Well, because it's about the legacy, and I think that's what all the characters are struggling with: is what does my legacy mean, or what do I have to leave behind? Which kind of sounds meta, but I think that's why the series is so strong. Is because you're talking about like maybe like who's the villain here, and that's the point. Is that in real life we don't usually have straight up villains. We have people who are bad and good, and I think that's why it's so strong. Is because it takes that protagonist antagonist and it switches it completely on its head.
Like outside of John Kreese, there are no villains in the show.
Exactly.
It's
I
great.
agree.
And Kreese doesn't even he shows up at literally at the end of episode 10
Very
kind of
end,
thing.
and
Like
he's
literally.
fucking great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chomping on a big ol' cigar. I love John Kreese.
What I actually want to add is for the Karate Kid, like we've all been talking about, like we've all pictured Johnny as like this evil, like pretty much like the evil Sith Lord kind of like in this movie, and Danny's more of like the Jedi, like that's coming to like you know pretty much be the good guy at the end, and Danny's like the one that everybody likes. And going into the show, I thought that was going to be a similar case. Like Johnny's going to be the villain again, Danny's going to be the good guy. But Johnny in the show, like you see his story, you see his background, and just watching him and watching this show, he's much more relatable as as a person, as a human being than Danny is. Danny's more of this like self-righteous, like he's kind of like getting cocky at times. He's like built this empire with his car job and everything like that with his wife. And Johnny's kind of like his life has gone downhill, and you really feel for him more than you do for Danny. And honestly, like Johnny is much more likable character in my opinion. I just don't. I'm not a really big fan of Danny in this show.
I couldn't have said that better myself. I think, and it's funny because in like American pop culture, generally speaking, we love the underdog story, right? Like, think about all movies, franchises, sports, and otherwise. Like, we love rooting for the underdog, and like, it's funny because throughout the original Karate Kid series, like Danny LaRusso was the underdog, right? He was the weakling. He's the transfer from New Jersey, and and all these things, and he rises to the top, and we're like, yes, he's the best. And then here we are watching Johnny Lawrence at the lowest point of his life, and I found myself rooting for him on more than one occasion.
It completely just recontextualizes that 80s sports montage movie underdog bully relationship.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you talked about something that was really good about Danny is that we don't like him as much anymore because he got what his character wanted, technically. His
Yes.
objective was like, I want to get out of my socioeconomic. Remember? Because I feel like the biggest thing about the Karate Kid was like he's a scrappy kid from the East Coast and he's also poor.
Yeah.
His
Single
family-
mom kind of thing.
Single
Yeah.
mom. He
Mike
fit
gets
in.
fucked up.
Who
And
was
now-
hilarious, by the way, throughout this series.
I like the mom.
But I
And
think he
may I-
gets what he wants. And like, what do you do after you get what you originally want?
And
You
may I
live
just add,
happily ever after, as Willy Wonka said.
Go ahead, Andrew.
one thing that really pissed me off in this show, it's a really small thing, but it's really not. One thing that really like grinds my gear about Danny, he used Miyagi's karate for his commercials, like just like karate chopping the prices in half.
I
Like,
love
oh my,
that.
Miyagi would have rolled in his grave that Danny was using this for a commercial to get people to come to his business. Like, this is such a disgrace for what Miyagi has taught him.
It's such a great arc that he just grows up into like this phony sellout. I love it.
Giving bonsais to everyone who buys a car.
I
Oh
forget,
my
was it season 1 or season 2 where his wife brings up the bonsais, and he's like, "No, it's not a gimmick. I make all
That's
those
two.
trees by hand." Okay,
Oh, that's in
let's
season
talk
2.
about that then.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
two.
No, the bonsai trees, like first off, like we all know about like the
Right,
stereotype of like the car salesman, right? Just like already you don't think of it, like think of that positively, and I think Daniel like having that dimension to his character only adds to that dimension to him. Like what we said before, like Johnny is the hero of this story. He is the guy that you're rooting for. He's clearly the underdog. Like for God's sake, the dude like for breakfast, he has bologna. And it's not even like bologna
Yeah.
with like a bread. He literally put it in a pan and fried
Fries
it.
up some bologna.
Yeah.
That struggle meal.
Yeah, it's like, bro, like I've had better meals when I was a poor college student. Like, what's going on?
That's another thing. Speaking of Danny working having his car dealerships, I love that because it dodged one of the biggest soft reboot bullets, and that is the sequel takes place like 30, 40 years later, and everybody is still doing the same exact thing. Like that's a big thing with like The Force Awakens,
Yeah.
where it's like, all right, it's 40 years later, what's everybody doing? It's like, well, Han Solo's still smuggling stuff, and he's wearing the same jacket that he wore when he was 30. He's an ancient old mummified man now, but he's dressing and acting exactly the same. And it's like, no, like, yeah, they were karate guys when they were in high school, and now Johnny's a handyman, and Danny owns a car dealership. And no, he didn't marry his high school sweetheart, because what percentage of people do that? She moved out east, and married a podiatrist or whatever.
Yeah,
And
I
Adam,
love
like,
that. It feels like progression happened.
definitely.
oh
Go
yeah,
ahead, Andrew.
and Adam, like what you said before about Johnny grabbing the bologna. I was about to cry when he was in that mini mart, and that guy is like holding his pizza because he can't afford anything else to eat. And he's like holding it with like no gloves,
Fucking
and he's,
pizza.
oh my gosh! And Johnny's like, "Can you wear gloves or something?" And he's just like looking at him. He's like, "No, I'm not gonna do that. This is what you get. It's a $2." Like, oh my gosh, this poor guy, man. Like, he just can't get anywhere in life. Like, his life is terrible. He doesn't have a job. He might be getting evicted soon.
The show hits different in the age of Corona.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Definitely.
Put some gloves on when you handle that pizza.
seriously.
You know, and it's funny because like he's at this bottom point, and then in comes stumbling this skinny, wimpy Miguel, right? Like,
Yeah.
and he shows up as, you know, he's Johnny's neighbor, and he just comes in and he's just like, "Hey, can you just teach me some karate?" And like it doesn't even dawn on Johnny this, in however 34 years later, to even think to try to make money off this. And this kid comes out of nowhere who's like, "I'm weak. I need, you know, help with like, you know, getting confidence." And you know, he starts teaching him, and like, and it's interesting because to me, Miguel is the Danny LaRusso of this series.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I actually want to add on to that. I was gathering my thoughts before this show, and that you made a really good point, by the way. I was gathering my thoughts about Miguel. Miguel is the what if moment if Danny was to be trained by the Cobra Kai. Like Danny could have been, or Miguel could have been trained. You know, he could have wound up meeting Danny, and he could have been trained by Danny, but no, he gets trained by Johnny instead. And Miguel is kind of like what Danny was at the beginning of the movie of Karate Kid. Like he's like the wimp. He's a geek. He's kind of like you know, he's not very popular.
Or
He gets into fights, right? And then he stumbles upon Johnny, who's an ex Cobra Kai guy, and you kind of see Miguel change from this wimpy, like this wimpy, unpopular kid that gets into fights and loses to more. He becomes more and more like Johnny, but also has some personality traits of Danny as well. So it's kind of a crazy mix that he has going on.
And the
I
mix
want
with
to.
Robbie, I was gonna say that's the parallels with Robbie and
Yep,
Miguel.
yeah.
His
Yeah.
son, so epically woven together, if I might use that word, of the two parallels of the series. Yeah.
That was the thing I wanted to segue into with Miguel, because I think he brings forth one of my favorite like thematic things in this whole show, and that is the fact that it focuses on Cobra Kai. That if this was the hypothetical bland studio reboot, it would be okay. Another kid learns Miyagi Do and learns wax on, wax off, and it's the same thing. The fact that this one is no, this kid needs to learn karate, and his instructor is going to teach him strike hard, strike fast, no mercy, don't be a pussy. And you know what? It works.
Hell yeah.
It works out for him because Johnny isn't a lunatic like Kreese was.
And it made me feel so good.
Some kids need that. Some kids need that push, and I like that. The fact that the show is like, all right, you know what? The wax on, wax off, find your center balance thing, that works for some people. The toughen up, go out there and, scrape your knees a bit, that works for some people too. And that makes the whole dynamic a lot more interesting than Cobra Kai bad, cutting little bonsai trees good.
The lessons that and the interpretation of Miguel, no, the way Miguel interprets, the lessons of Cobra Kai, and the way he attempts to implement them in his everyday life. I think seeing that perspective of it really, for me, kind of helped reshape my entire opinion of Cobra Kai the way I knew it, which is kind of like what your whole point was, and I really appreciate that mindset, because I was sitting there struggling with this the entire time of like, what's really wrong with Cobra Kai?
Strike first. How about don't let opportunities pass you up? Strike hard. How's about do your best? No mercy. How's about don't give up?
I'm with it.
Yeah, me too. And the thing is, even Johnny, like towards the end of season 1, like he sees like the no mercy aspect. Johnny is the most interesting evolved character in the show, second to Miguel in my opinion. But Johnny sees Cobra Kai as something that he can change for the better, and he knows that Cobra Kai is kind of like this. It's a really, really good martial arts group for training for karate, but he knows that it needs to change. It's not supposed to be right, and I don't know. I feel like it's going in the favor of like it. I didn't think it was going to be a show where it shows Cobra Kai being like the good martial arts to learn, and it's becoming that for me.
I don't know if Johnny thinks it's all good, but I feel like he takes what he learned from Kreese that was positive, and then the things that were negative, he tries to get rid of for Miguel, because he starts to have, more of this conscience, like his development as a character over time. But he takes those positive aspects that you're talking about and tries to almost reframe them for a new generation so they can empower themselves.
Yeah.
It's a guy coming to terms with an abusive childhood. It's I think it was I think Bill Burr has a bit about it where he's like, the cycle of abuse is just the child trying to be marginally less fucked up than their parent was.
Yeah.
Just be a little bit less angry and you'll be all right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Adam.
No, go ahead, please.
I think it's also interesting, to your point, Abby, I think Miguel also brings that to Johnny on many levels, right? Like, I think Miguel teaches Johnny, and in my opinion, brings him to the 21st century, literally via technology.
Literally and figuratively, yeah.
Send it to the internet.
Yeah, literally. And even down to the point where he allows girls to enter Cobra Kai, right? Like, Miguel equally had to teach Johnny just as much as he was getting back. And that's what I really loved about the development of the two of them, because they were so reliant on one another for so many different reasons. and even going down to, I mean, I guess that's season 2, but the tournament, but like there's so many times where they have these like inner monologue moments throughout the series where they're repeating what the other one has said, and then
Yeah.
implementing that in that moment.
Yeah, I think really what it comes down to, Cobra Kai, obviously the title of the show, very, very much so, it encompasses everything that it's about, right? Cobra Kai is really the mechanism through which we see the core themes of the show actually be shown. It's something that all of you have really touched on, right? I think one of the most important things about the show, one of the things that I love the most about it, is how it really talks about the importance of mentorship and really, by extension, fatherhood, right? We're dealing with people who are basically being surrogate fathers. Right? We haven't touched on Daniel and Robbie, but that's very much what that relationship is. And on top of that, too, one of the other really, really big important things of the show is second chances, right? Of how you can be redeemed, right? And how you can take something that was bad, but turn it into something good. One of my favorite scenes of the entire show is when Johnny goes to like the board of karate or whatever it is in LA. That's even what it's called, right? And he goes out there and he advocates like, hey, look, I know Cobra Kai was banned, but we really want to participate in this. And they're like, why? And he really gets. I was kind of
So good.
shocked at how vulnerable it was and how good he was at
Yeah.
acting it. And he was just like, look, like we're doing really good for these kids, and they're doing just as good thing for me, right? It's this. It shows the kind of relationship between master and student, mentor and mentee, of how it's a symbiotic relationship, right? Where they're both being benefited, right? Johnny needs Miguel just as much as Miguel needs Johnny, kind of thing, right? And I think that's one of the best parts of this show is how it shows how important that is and how Cobra Kai is the mechanism that kind of like lets those things happen.
Yeah.
And Miguel is the son that Johnny wants that he can't get with Robbie as well.
Mm-hmm.
And with Robbie, Danny sees Robbie as someone that he can change. He sees Robbie as someone that he can change for the better. Robbie is kind of like how Johnny was in the Karate Kid, but Robbie becomes more and more like Danny. So it's kind of like an interesting, like,
Yeah.
stark contrast between Robbie and Miguel, which is something I really like to watch in the show.
I have a confession, everyone.
Go ahead.
I cannot stand Robbie.
Robbie.
Like
He just sucks. He's like
show me a character ever that can annoy you to this level. I mean, the pompous, the arrogance, the self-righteousness, the ever-holy, sneaky, diabolical Robbie. I mean, I'm sorry, I cannot say enough bad things about this kid.
Let
This
it
kid's
all
very
let it
good
all
at
out.
karate, I'll give him that, but
He
boy,
is.
oh boy, is he a plank of wood.
I mean, he's so manipulative. He's so like, and he knows what he's doing, right? Like, and he proves it time and time again. I mean, and I understand that they kind of set him up to be this kind of like reformed bad boy, if you will. But I mean, let's be honest, man. Like, he is wise enough, in my opinion, to know the difference and to acknowledge what he's doing. And I don't think he is as bought into, let's say, Miyagi-Do as he is bought into getting into his daughter's pants. Like,
Ooh.
that's
Ooh.
I mean, someone could try to change my mind, but I'm not buying it from Robbie.
That was one of the things that bugged me about season 1 is his little arc of going from just like, John Connor in the beginning of T2, just a little piece of shit, to being the goodest boy. Felt a little rushed. Like, he literally, when Louis pranks him into starting up the car in the showroom and he storms out all mad, he's literally ready to punch Daniel in the face when he tries to stop him from leaving. And then, like, one episode later, it's like, gee golly gosh, Mr. LaRusso, I can't wait to do some karate together. And it's like, I get it. He just needed that. He needed, like, a good father figure in his life. He needed an outlet for his frustrations. But, like, it felt a little rushed. That's the one thing in season 1 that felt a little rushed.
In Robbie's defense, though, and I happen to, I'm not a gigantic fan of Robbie. I'm more of a Miguel Johnny fan in the show. But in Robbie's defense, Robbie doesn't have the father that he wants, and his mom isn't even around.
Ooh.
So he's kind of this loner kid that doesn't have any direction, and he stumbles upon Danny, who he sees as a father figure.
A perfect father figure.
Right. Danny and I don't like Danny. I don't like Danny in the show at all. But he needs somebody that can give him some direction. And Danny's at least, I would say he's at least trying to be a Miyagi Jr. He's not doing a very good job, in my opinion. But
Nope.
Johnny has changed for the better. Like, he was on a wrong path. He wasn't going to school. He was stealing things. He was in a bad gang. And now he's, like, defending Danny's business. There was a point where he was defending Danny's business against his old gang. He's not involved with them anymore. He's not stealing. He's going in a better direction. And I think we can give Johnny, I think we can give Robbie some points for that.
Let's
That
not
was
forget he is targeting LaRusso though to get back at his father. Like
He's
we're
using him.
yeah, he was using him. So like we're presenting Robbie as like he happened to stumble into Daniel LaRusso and happened to stumble into Miyagi Do. That's not what happened.
That's the classic thing of like it didn't start out like that, but then it became something real, and it's like all right, but
Yeah, and that to literally to that point is why I can't buy what he's selling.
I will say there was one Danny Robbie scene that I really really liked, and it was the little montage where he's working at the car dealership, and Daniel keeps correcting all of his shit to be like the Miyagi, like clean the windows. Just because Ralph Macchio looks so fucking excited, like, oh my god, I get to teach a kid, a young disillusioned boy, wax on, wax off. Oh my god! And I was like,
He goes,
that sold me on it. That was cute.
I finished all the cars, Mr. LaRusso. What about the other lot? Yeah, his face.
I think Robbie for sure is a very flawed character. I agree with you. He's a little piece of shit. I definitely think that he moves too fast to Mark's point, but I was happy to see him choose and like be active. Like he's the one who chose, right, to represent himself. Though I suppose by extension Miyagi-Do in the karate tournament, like that's a good thing for him to show that kind of arc. And I think honestly, like he has some of the most heartbreaking scenes. Like when we might be talking about season 2 because it kind of blurs together. But like there was that one scene where Johnny confronts like Robbie's mom, like his ex-wife, and then he's like, "Why isn't he in school?" And the mom's like, "Where the fuck were you when he was a kid when you just left?" Or like, "Where the fuck were you when he had like not pneumonia? It was some other disease. Like I was there. I was the one who nursed him to health, kind of thing." It's just like, damn, you kind of feel that. And then that other time too, where like he like gets everything set up for his mom, and he's like, "Hey mom, like I thought we'd watch a movie like the good old times, haha." And then the mom's like, "Nah, I gotta go see the other guy," kind of thing's like, ooh my god, you feel for the guy, man. And
It's got it rough.
yeah, and even then too, like when he's sleeping on the couch and his mom brings someone home, it's just like, damn, you really feel like this guy has had such a troubled childhood. Clearly on the wrong side of tracks, clearly hanging out with the wrong people, like we said before. That doesn't mean that he wasn't a piece of shit, because he definitely was a piece of shit. But I'm glad that he at least evolved. I'm gonna be real with you. If there's anyone that's a piece of shit, it's fucking Danny's like brother, cousin, whoever he is. Fuck that dude, bro.
Idiot.
Fuck that dude.
He's an idiot.
Oh my
Talk
god.
about setting off a string of a series of unfortunate events that no one saw coming.
Yeah. I like we talked about Robbie, and I think we'll get to his conclusion with the other characters. But one other character too, on the note of characters that I hated, screw like whatever his name was, the Asian guy that like Johnny first beat up and was like Samantha's like initial boyfriend. Screw that dude. Fuck that dude. I hated him.
Wait, which guy?
He was the guy that didn't like sushi when he was at like.
Oh right. What's his face? Yeah, no, that guy was a prick.
Kyler.
Okay, yeah, that's his name, Kyler.
Oh, such a good name.
Yeah, he was terrible. From his name, I couldn't stand him.
The fucking grandma bracelet thing. It's like, ooh, this dude. Ooh, this guy.
It was bad, man. It was bad. And even like when he was in the movie theater, it's like, bro, come on, man, don't do that. Come on.
I was saying Robbie was a better choice by far, either of them than that kid.
Oh yeah,
I agree.
100%.
I'm with you there.
100%.
I just want to say,
Yeah.
no one has brought him up yet. My favorite character in the show, my all-time favorite, the Hawk. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I think we're getting to the first polarizing character. Go ahead, Andrew.
We'll
Go
get
ahead.
To Hawk. We'll get to Hawk.
He is by far my favorite character. He is so freaking funny. Like, I love how he evolved from this like scared, very self-conscious because of his deformity on his lip, this kid that's just getting picked on all the time, to this like ruthless badass, doesn't care about anything, like aggressive, hit first, hit hard type of guy. I love his new hairdo. I love his tattoo. He gets a girlfriend. Like, I was rooting for this kid from episode 1 to episode 10 of season 1. I love his evolution, and honestly, like, he's by far my favorite character.
Before I say this, has anybody here not seen season 2?
I've seen up to season 5 of season 2.
Episode 5. Episode 5.
Episode 5, yeah.
Okay. No, I'll just say I really I like Hawk. I think he's one of the better characters. on
Wow, that's so interesting. Okay.
I love what they do with him.
I agree. I think his development is fantastic. I think he himself and the role that he plays blows my mind. He's Johnny Crease of this entire series, right? Like, he plays a very like of Karate Kid 1, right? Like, he plays a very similar perceived bad boy kind of mentality, even down to the last fight, right? When he makes the clear target.
Yeah.
You know, his character though, really well written, amazing development. But by God, there were some times I was just like, dude, get over yourself.
It's like, all right, dude, good for you. Flip the script. But
Yeah,
but calm down, bro.
Exactly.
Calm down.
Every time he interacted with Dimitri,
Chill.
like every time he interacted with Dimitri, I was feeling like that.
Like, I see Miguel, and Miguel is someone that's, he was the first one to learn Cobra Kai in this new group. I wouldn't define him as the core member of Cobra Kai. If I'm thinking of Cobra Kai, every single time I think of Cobra Kai, I think of the Hawk. He is the symbol for the new Cobra Kai. He's ruthless. He doesn't care what he does. He will do anything to win. He gets disqualified at the end of season 1 for striking out. Was it Robbie, right?
Yeah.
Robbie?
It was Robbie.
Yeah.
Robbie's shoulder.
Yeah, it was Robbie.
Yeah, during a break, and he just doesn't care. But I love him. I honestly love him. I have no like things that I hate about him. In all honesty,
He's the throwback. He's Cobra Kai classic.
I was gonna say
He remember Dutch.
What was that? Go ahead.
Dutch. Y'all remember Dutch from the original Karate Kid?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He is like the student that John Kreese wanted Johnny to be in the original.
Yes,
and that's what he serves like thematically, I think. I think it's great that he went through the arc. I agree that he like went overboard, thought he was a fucking psychopath by episode 10. It's like, bro, like you need to like get some help kind of thing.
He's one of the most compelling characters because your opinion on whether you like or dislike him as a person wavers like wildly, where it's like he's an entertaining person, but then he'll do something where you're like, all right, fuck this guy, but then it'll seem like he could come back from it, and I don't know. His arc is one of the most engaging in the show, I think.
Every time he's on screen, you're like, something's about to go down, and I'm ready for it.
Whenever Hawk is in a public place and there are nerds about.
Oh yeah, and like hats off to Jacob Bertrand who plays Hawk. Like I think he's really nailed the performance. Like
what good range.
Yeah, like you could tell he's one of the better actors on the show. And one thing I like about Hawk too is that he kind of, because of his actions, kind of brings up this conflict that we see in the show of like, what is the actual purpose of martial arts, right? And this is something that Daniel LaRusso also kind of thinks of too, where he kind of has that flashback where he remembers what Miyagi-san says, kind of thing. What's rule number 1 and what's rule number 2, kind of thing, right? And it's really martial arts, and this is something that Bruce Lee said, it's really about expressing yourself and being the better version of yourself, right? Whereas, and again, it ties into this whole thing of like, Johnny wants to make Cobra Kai better, but it's a matter of perception, right? And Hawk is that bad side of that perception of strike hard, strike fast, no mercy kind of thing, where it's really about destruction and getting in people's faces kind of thing, right? And that's not what martial arts is truly about, but it's good that the show actually explores that, right? Because so many of us have never actually experienced doing martial arts or actually know about the history, even if this is only one of them. But Abby, I know you were saying a couple of things about our boy Hawk here. What did you think of him?
Hawk, I think, plays into the more negative aspects of what Cobra Kai stood for in the 80s, which I think is why he's really useful as a character.
Definitely.
Just for plot. I think Alicia and some of the other characters
Yes.
I kind of like
Yeah.
more
Mm,
personally.
mhm,
I mean, I do
mhm.
think she's very dynamic and interesting, but I definitely like Alicia and her relationship with Sam more. If that makes sense.
I'm
No,
with you on the Aisha game.
she's one that I really liked just because it's of all the characters that you assume to join up with Cobra Kai, she is not one of them.
No, she's not.
But she's the second. She's the second one that shows up, and it really clicks with her. It works for her.
Yeah, and I think it shows the change of Cobra Kai as an org, but also of Johnny and of his
Yes.
arc, and reflecting even who his students are
Mhm,
and their
mhm.
identities, who they are as people, and that he's changing.
Yeah,
What I
and
like-
go
Oh,
for it.
sorry,
Go for it. Sorry.
Go for it, bro.
I was gonna say what I really like about Aisha's character is that like, although she does a really great job of embodying the Cobra Kai mentality, the fight style, she never really quite wavers from like who she is when you first meet her,
Yeah.
right? Like, although she kind of came off as like a shy, timid person, the moment she steps on the mat the first time, and Miguel just hits her, it was over. Like she took it and she was like, I'm in on this, and she was great the entire series. Like you knew what you were kind of getting every time you saw her, and she always had really good insight to things. And she was very much like a yo, just go for it.
I want to bring up something you said, Adam. The whole, martial art is a way of bettering yourself. Because that's an interesting point to bring up. Because I feel like you could see that really clearly reflected with both Aisha and Hawk. Where with her, it's like, why did she join Cobra Kai? It's like she's getting bullied. She needs a little bit of confidence. She needs to be able to.
I don't mean to
stand up
cut you off. I
people.
just want to say her bullies are fucking insane, bro. Like what they did.
They're
Like I'm gonna send a
ridiculous.
Snapchat to the entire school. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
The little Regina George mini.
It's
that
like
they take out.
Jesus.
But like, she joins up with Cobra Kai because she wants a little bit more self confidence. She wants to be able to stand up for herself, and that's what she gets out of Cobra Kai, and it works for her. It works great. And then you look at someone like Hawk, and it's like, use martial arts to become the better version of yourself. And it's like, from Hawk's perspective, of course he is the better version of himself. He's confident. He could beat people's asses. He has a girlfriend. He's not being picked on. Nobody fucks with him. Obviously, he's better. We as the viewers know, oh, he's going down a dark path, but you can't fault him for his line of logic there. I think that's one of the things that makes these characters so compelling, is everybody works from their own point of view.
Definitely, yeah.
It makes sense that Danny would be a prick about a new Cobra Kai starting up, because suffice to say, he's got a lot of baggage with the name Cobra Kai.
I really appreciate your perspective on that because I know I definitely wasn't always looking at the characters from that light, and I know it's ironic to say that because that's literally the entire point of this series. You're looking at it from Johnny's perspective, but I think I failed to really consider the characters from their own individual perspectives on one another. Just because, like, I felt like anytime I felt a drastic change in the series, I just got annoyed very quickly, like we discussed before with Robbie, how quickly he became like, mini LaRusso. And maybe that's probably why I don't give Hawk enough slack.
Like that's the thing. Like, when we got to the tournament, I loved the tournament because part of me was like, I don't really know who to root for here. But then I thought about it for like 5 seconds, and I was like, yeah, no, fucking Cobra Kai never die. Hell yeah, kick his ass. Absolutely, Miguel, go for it.
Dude, when Robbie brought that kick out, I was going to freak if he won. I kid you not, I was going to throw my computer out the window if he won.
And I understand that we're supposed to feel conflicted, but I absolutely am glad that Cobra Kai won that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not happy how they won it, but I'm glad that Miguel got a little attaboy. But also, I feel fine in feeling that way. I feel like the show wasn't setting me up to be like, well, you're going to root for Robbie now.
No.
It's like, no matter what your take on these characters and this conflict is, the show is cool with it. And that's one of their biggest strengths, is that balance.
Andrew, I know you wanted to say something before. What were you going to say?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say how Aisha gave Yasmin a front wedgie. Just honestly,
Yes.
boosted my support even more for Cobra Kai. Like, honestly, all these people that are in Cobra Kai, all these members, were nobodies, and now they're all somebodies, and they're finding their place in their own world and in the world that they're living in. and they're getting more confident. And honestly, I love when the underdogs become stronger in the end, and they
Mhm.
just like they find their place, and they're just like they get more confidence in themselves, and their self consciousness gets overtaken by them appreciating who they are, and their development is just getting a lot stronger too. Um, Aisha's awesome, may I just add.
What about Dimitri though? Like barring season 2, Dimitri, season 1 Dimitri, right? Like,
Oh,
what do we feel about him?
Ooh.
Dimitri. All
Oh,
right,
Dimitri.
Dimitri is, I would put him in the same tier as Danny LaRusso's son Anthony. I don't really.
the tier list.
I mean, I don't hate Danny's son Anthony. I feel like he's just like that, that bratty young kid, like, whatever, dad. I don't want to listen to you. I'm gonna do my own thing. And Dimitri's kind of like, I don't want to join the group. Like, I don't want to get hit. I'm afraid of getting blood on my face or something like that. He's not someone that I really dislike, but he's also not someone that I like either.
Part of me hates Dimitri, but I know deep down that's just because Dimitri was me in high school.
Mood.
Oh.
I'm gonna fight smarter, not harder. Yeah, shut the fuck up. Do 50 push-ups on your knuckles.
I was gonna
Fuck you.
say, like, Dimitri is that Reddit expert
Yeah.
that we all know exists. That guy who's like,
he's
actually,
got
you have to
gold.
do this, this, and it's like, bro, like, you haven't even done it. You're just saying that kind of thing. That's what Dimitri is, 100%.
Fucking Dimitri. God damn it, Dimitri.
But it's so funny seeing like Dimitri and Hawk's relationship and the way it changes multiple times
Mhm.
throughout the series. Like, and there's these glimpses of like Hawk being who he really was. I can't remember his actual name anymore, but like
What's
like
his
he.
name?
I don't remember either.
Mouskowitz. Eli, right?
Yeah, Eli.
Yeah, Eli, yeah, yeah.
Mouskowitz. And the only reason I remember that is because I think that's the name of the mouse from An American Tale.
And Dimitri is the one that recalls his last name in one of the episodes. He's like, "It's
Yeah.
Mockowitz." Like he like takes it personally that someone forgot his last name. Yeah, just like what you said before, it's sad seeing kind of like the Hawk and Dimitri go their separate ways. The Hawk is kind of like becoming someone that he always wanted to be, but was afraid to be. And Dimitri is kind of like not ready for change, and he's just like not ready to like really explore or figure out like what he wants to become, because he's like afraid that he might fail or something.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot, and I suppose this is one of the best parts about the show is that I think it does such a good job of giving each character dimension. Like, even if they do some dumbass shit or some horrible shit, like, you're still like, okay, like, I get it, kind of thing. Like, I was really personally struck by Johnny's backstory, right? That they never talk about in the original Karate Kid movies, where they talk about how, like, his mom married, like, this, like, really rich person, and there was that abusive relationship, right? And how, the reason why he loved Cobra Kai so much is because he was just like his students, right? Where he had no self-esteem, right? He wasn't someone who really felt like he was confident in himself. And then he comes, right, to Cobra Kai, this thing that he's looked forward to so much, and suddenly he is finding this confidence. He is believing in himself, right? And even then, too, finding out more about what happened to him after. Like, I still think one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when he has that conversation with Miguel at the diner, right? Like, this super frank
so good.
and brutally vulnerable conversation about what happened when his son was born, kind of thing. And again, I have to give a massive amount of credit to William Zabka, who plays Johnny. Like, he was acting his ass off in that scene, kind of thing, right? Especially with his eyes. And I think that really sealed the deal for me in terms of, like, to Mark's credit, like he said before, this show could have easily coasted, just phoned it in, but they really, really cared, and they really want to show some depth to these characters.
If the show was bad, then Miyagi-Do would be the main focus. The fact that they went with Cobra Kai is an interesting decision that makes this an interesting show.
Or can we talk about how beautiful Miyagi-Do was, and like all the
Miyagi-Do is fucking
nostalgia that
Yeah.
and all the feels that came?
Mm-hmm.
Like, all the cars were still there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the medal was still on the wall. Like, so I mean, in the cabin, like so many things in that space. It was just so it was so good. Like I really felt like everything that they all the nostalgia pieces that they brought over from Karate Kid, like I thought it was so well done and well respected to the original, like on so many different levels.
I was gonna say the Ford convertible for me was, I think, probably one of the strongest things. Was that like episode 6 or episode 5?
Yeah.
That it was very wholesome and very touching.
Yeah, I think again we keep on talking about the sins of other kind of franchises, right? It's so easy to be like, "Huh, remember this?" kind of thing. And I think Cobra Kai does such a good job of making subtle references without being like, "Oh my God, do you remember this?" kind of thing, and paying really good tribute to the characters. Like, I think one thing too that I really loved is like it really is a show that's about the 80s kind of thing. It's like 80s in modern day. Like everywhere Johnny goes, he's always playing like 80s hair metal kind of thing. His
Yes.
car is still from the
Great
80s.
soundtrack.
But at the same time too, you hear those like small little hints of the original soundtrack. And I think all of those are really well done and well placed, right? They don't lay it on thick. You know, they're not like, this is so Asian, am I right, kind of thing. But they do play it in the right kind of places, and I think the show is much better for that.
It's not senseless nostalgia pandering. It gives a little winks once in a while. It plays some of the old serious stuff as a gag now. Like there's the whole Johnny and Miguel scene where he's like, "Hey, is there a way you want me to watch these windows?" He goes, "No, I don't give a shit." Where it's like, winky, 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 fun, fun, but they don't overdo it. It has its own stuff to say, and it isn't overly reliant on nostalgia.
I think you were talking about the 80s and how it does kind of pay homage to that era and even the cult mentality we
Yeah.
have toward films from that decade. I think it does a good thing where it shows, I think, kind of that audience, because I'm saying as someone who's not born in the 80s but much later, but for that audience who did grow up watching that movie, that we're older, we've
Hmm.
changed, and I think that's a huge thing of not pandering to the nostalgia but acknowledging it exists and how do we move forward from that.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they take the piss out of that really hard, and I think he shows up for the first time in season 2. But there's a character that Johnny runs into at, I think it's like a Lowe's Hardware, and he compliments him on like a Metallica shirt or something. He's like,
It's like,
"Yeah,
season two.
the
Yeah.
80s is the best decade ever." I mean, I was born in like '91, but
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think, and part of that is also, I think, goes into the show. Like we've talked about, like the show can get very corny at times, like incredibly corny. And I think that just echoes the 80s. Like it's complete with like montages kind of thing, like straight out of the 80s kind of thing. But I think that kind of plays into what my perceived weaknesses of the show. Like I love the show. I think that it's really good, but there are a couple of things where I think it could be better. And we've kind of touched on them a little bit. I think there are times where I think the writing is out of this world, and there are other times where I'm like, guys, like this is this you guys could have done a lot better here, kind of thing. Particularly for me, the thing that I always get struck by is like I hate that trope where like it just so happens that they see each other at just so this time to make everything look bad, and then they all get mad at each other, even though if they just had a fucking conversation,
Oh my
it
God,
all would
tell
have
me
been
about it.
cleared up. Like I hate that trope so much, and it's like one thing if the show did it once or twice. The show does it every time, kind of thing. And I think like the show would be so much better if they didn't rely on that trope. Like you guys are clearly capable of writing some really good stuff. I feel like they don't need to rely on that. You know?
I have
it's
a question for
yeah.
y'all. I want to see, like, you're talking about this like accidental coincidence. Do y'all think that's purposeful to make fun of that happens in the 80s genre? Or they themselves are leaning into it to use? Do you know what I mean? Is it meta or is it
Hmm.
not?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like it more happens in season 2 than season 1.
I agree with
But
that.
it felt to me more less like a kind of thematic homage, like the way they use, say, montages is very much like this is an 80s continuation, so we're gonna have some sports montages and we're gonna take them seriously.
Yeah.
But like stuff like that felt more just like, each episode's like 30 minutes long. Let's ramp up the drama a little bit and end scene, move on.
Yeah, and that's kind of like what I was alluding when I got my first statement about the series. Like, so much could have been like avoided with like a text.
Yeah.
Like, it's the 21st century. Like, you could have been like, hey, did you send someone to go mess up Johnny's car or nah? You know, like, and yet like that discussion doesn't even
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it's little things like that because that created obviously like a whole slew of problems,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and it's like it could have been so easy, or hey, did you tell these? Oh, that's season 2. I can't bring it up, but you know, there's
Yeah.
so many moments. I'm sure you guys know where I'm going with that one, but like,
Yeah.
there's so many moments where you're just kind of like, this is 21st century. You literally all your characters are showing cell phones in their hands all the time, and you mean to tell me no one had the idea to be like, hey, let me just send them a text?
Yeah,
like
like
the Johnny Carr one I can abide because at least that one, like, yeah, it led to a stupid like misunderstanding fight, but then at least that led into, okay, well, now they have to go get him a new car and they're going to talk and they're going to grow as characters,
yeah.
and and a bunch of interesting character stuff is going to happen. The similar situation that happens in season 2, it's like, if you guys talked about this for 5 minutes longer than you do, then this would not be a major plot point for this entire season.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it gets to a point where it's just like, God damn, I didn't know LA was such a small town that you see each other this much. Like
I
the
think, yeah, I see that, but it also isn't. It's all valley, right? So it's supposed to be like inland LA, which is kind of interesting because it's more suburban, like middle class LA instead of like.
we should note that Abby actually lives in SoCal. She knows the area way better than
Oh.
any of us.
Oh,
So,
yeah,
well,
but I think
yeah,
because it's
Let,
hyper specific.
yes, she would know, kind of thing. Um,
I just want to
yeah.
say.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Andrew.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just want to say, I love the fact. Well, one thing that I do find as a flaw, I'm kind of ignoring it though. Um, I don't like Danny teaching Miyagi though. I wish. I don't know. I feel like Miyagi should be the only one teaching Miyagi Do. I think Danny's not doing a good service to it.
You should have Danny Doe.
Well, he
Yeah,
does say that.
Yeah,
exactly. I just don't like Danny. Johnny has so much depth. He has so much depth. He's growing. He is evolving. Danny is the same. Danny's pretty much who he was when he was a kid, but 10 times fold. He just has PTSD that he can't get let go of. Um, he's um, he's kind of like going against Johnny and doing his own thing, trying to make his own karate group because like he's butthurt about his past, and he just can't just can't do his continue his business with his wife because he's like all upset about Johnny starting Cobra Kai again. Like I just don't like Danny teaching Miyagi Do.
Hmm. Hmm.
I will say, for all of my complaining about, like, well, this doesn't make sense. Why didn't they just talk about this a little more? I do very much appreciate the more like fantasy reality elements of the show, where it treats learning karate like having magic powers.
I loved it.
Where,
I
where,
was
it's,
literally,
where like the biggest conflict happening in this entire city is revolving around a strip mall children's karate class. The show leans really hard into that without winking, or it takes itself completely seriously in that regard, and I'm here for it.
even down to the tournament, right? Like everything
Yeah.
leading up to
Mhm.
the tournament, it was a big deal, right? Like it's the Danny LaRusso here at the tournament, the former champion, like right? Like this dude was like a god for
This
that
guy
one
kicked
tournament.
another kid in the face 30 years ago.
Yeah, and it was like it was a big freaking deal. But I will say, like, although he was not a Miyagi,
Yeah.
I really valued the sentiment around like watching him and Robbie kind of go through the motions when they were actually like, you know, show me, mop the floor, and then
Yeah.
like show me wax. Like I was like, okay, I'm here. Like you had
Right.
me there, Cobra Kai.
Yeah, I think the show does a good job. Like, because I agree with you, Andrew. I think Danny is kind of shit. Like I would say like the thing about Danny in the show is he always takes 2 steps forward, then 1 step back. It's like, bro, come on, like you were so close, kind of thing.
Right.
But if there's one thing that I really do like is that they show that both Johnny and Danny are both incredibly flawed teachers, and they kind of realize that throughout the show. Like that, like shit, I fucked up here, kind of thing. Like Johnny,
They're two near middle-aged men who are obsessed with this karate tournament that
Yeah.
happened when they were children. They can't
Exactly.
let go of the past.
Exactly.
And that's fucking up their kids now.
Yeah. Like Danny, I think he at one point he realizes, yeah, I am not doing right by Miyagi. And then there's another time too when he realizes that like Miyagi never said that martial arts or karate was about like fighting. It was about finding balance and all this other stuff, which is another important theme in the show, right? And then there's a point where Johnny's like, fuck, I am fucking up these kids. I need to do better. Like I can't let them become what happened to me kind of thing. And I think that's
One
a
of my
very
favorite Johnny
powerful.
moments.
Yeah.
I think my favorite Johnny moment in the entire show is dipping little tiny hair into season 2 when he addresses what happened at the tournament with them, with
Yes.
Hawk getting disqualified
Yeah.
and Miguel attacking Robbie's shoulder.
Hmm.
The way that he frames that so that he's reprimanding them while still sticking with the like Cobra Kai, be a badass.
Right. Right.
Like I love that because that's exactly how that character would work. It's great.
When Danny teaches Miyagi-Do, it's some of the most cringeworthy parts of the whole show.
Come on, it wasn't that bad.
I'm on board with
Honestly, he has like these. He's the dad. He's the dad of everybody's lives with the dad jokes and like the dad personality, and where you face palm your head, and you're like, come on, like what the heck are
How
you
about the
doing?
scene with Robbie on the log, and he goes, "I need to go get service because the Devils are playing." I mean, you can't, you
I
can't,
like that.
you can't, you can't knock that. That's prime dad time stuff.
You know what? I can't believe I'm saying this. I can't believe I'm saying this because like I am a Danny lover when it comes to Karate Kid, but when it comes to Cobra Kai, fuck Danny. I honestly cannot stand him in this
Are
show.
y'all all anti-Danny? I'm like interested in all of us where we're like, are what like whose team are we? Are y'all all rooting for Cooper Kai?
I like Cobra Kai.
So
I like Danny the same way I like Hawk, where I don't really like him as a
Yeah.
character, at least not compared to, or as a person, at least not compared to Johnny. But I love the complexities of his character and the role he
Mhm.
plays in the
I
overall
agree.
story.
I 100% agree.
I said it earlier on. Like, I think Danny is the villain of Cobra Kai. Like, I think I feel really strongly about that. I think the best part about Miyagi Do is a character we haven't even talked about, which is Samantha,
Yeah.
and is hands down the best part about Miyagi Do in every way, shape, and form.
Abby, you want to talk about Samantha? It sounds like you have some words.
What do you think about Samantha?
No, I think it's kind of not. It's just kind of interesting that that's like his daughter, and we're like, it's more about Robbie and Miguel, which I agree with. But I also think in context of this world, that is kind of sad because his daughter, who's his blood child, is right there, and yet it's all about my legacy and my reputation
Right.
and outside forces, and not what's going on within my own house. Which I
Yeah.
think they also go into with like the car, and you talked about balance earlier, and I thought that was so interesting because it's like what is balance used for? And I think in the show, I think it does a really good job of like kind of poking fun of where are we putting all of our energy in regards to our balance because everyone is out of sync. They're out of balance. That's the point. And so trying to rectify that, which I think is Miyagi's big legacy, and I think Danny's looking at that and saying, being self-aware and like, okay, I am really out of balance, and how do we get back to a more neutral or at least happier standpoint?
So it's the same thing with Johnny being, surrogate dad to Miguel while his own kid is off, doing whatever.
Yeah,
Yep.
Hmm.
and that really frustrated me, honestly. Like, and it's not like Danny didn't try, right? Like,
Yeah.
Samantha grew up learning karate from Danny. He definitely, I don't say like, especially like when Danny wanted to like get Miyagi to up and running again. He first thing he did, he approached Samantha, right? Like it wasn't like he. I don't want to say he didn't ignore her, but he definitely tried, if you want to call it trying. Um, I'm using trying very loosely because I don't have a better word for it. He made an attempt. There you
Yeah.
go. He made an attempt, and you know, and I think like it was tough because like someone like Samantha, like she was going down a completely different route, right? She was getting in with the popular girls, and she was like not really feeling it, and she missed hanging out with Aisha, and then she saw Aisha doing all this karate stuff, and she was like, I don't really know what to do, and then she starts dating Miguel, and then she's like flirting with Robbie, and then she goes to this tournament, and she like hates the way Miguel's acting in his fight, and like which I have opinions about because I thought Miguel fought very well, and I don't know, like it was just like it was her development in her relationship with karate itself was really interesting.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I wasn't the biggest fan of Sam in season one. I think she gets some more interesting stuff to do in season two.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah,
But
I think
like,
my bias come from season two. To be fair.
a lot of that is just me because one of my least favorite character arc templates is the I'm a girl in high school, and do I be with the popular crowd who are all awful monsters, or do I be with my friend who isn't popular? I'm conflicted, and then, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to be horrible anymore. And it's like, all right, I've seen this before, but she gets to do some more neat karate focused stuff and be more of a part of the gang in season two. But season one, she didn't have a whole lot that interested me.
I respected her for the fact that she kind of like turned away from the popularity and stuff like that with Yasmin and stuff. And I was starting to like her, but it kind of like I kind of turned a 180 from her when she kind of like created a triangle, a love triangle with Miguel and Robbie. And I just kind of got like pissed off at her about that, and I feel like I don't know. She's kind of annoying in season one, in my opinion.
I do like her relationship with Danny. So
Yes.
I like that for her, karate is this thing that it's like, yeah, me and my dad used to do it, but now I'm in high school and I don't really hang out with my dad, so I'm not really into karate.
I do have to say
That's
though,
what she is.
I don't like the love triangle. I think besides like what their characters were doing, I think it was trying to parallel the original with the
Mm.
Yes.
Danny Alley,
Yep.
and then if
Yeah.
Sam, Miguel, and Robbie.
There's a
Um,
You
ton.
throw a little romance and into their conflict. It gives them a reason to punch a little harder.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of parallelism, like we talked about before, right? It mirrors the first movie, right? They end at the karate tournament just like they did in the first movie, right? It ends with Cobra Kai versus Miyagi Do, just like it does in the first movie. I think the problem with Samantha is that like her character is written to not have the interesting conflicts kind of thing, right? In season one, it's for her.
Just mostly her story.
Yeah, unfortunately for season one, she's like the girl that's like hopping between relationships kind of thing. That's like her defining character actions. Whereas in season two, she gets like completely bolstered and turns into one of the main cast, which is great kind of thing. But the unfortunate part is, and I'd be curious to hear what all of you think, I find myself incredibly bored with anything that only focuses on the younger characters. Like if it doesn't have
Yeah.
any of the older characters, I find myself not interested at all. Like I don't care about the relationship drama. I don't really care about the bullies, even though these are like literally like people who commit assault kind of thing, not even just bullies. Um, but I find myself way more like invested in caring more about the characters that we do know instead of the younger, newer people and their own conflicts within themselves, not including the old adult characters.
Big agree. Lesser extent with Miguel because I like Miguel, and slightly lesser extent with Hawk because usually whenever he shows up, it's either going to be a funny scene or a scene with a big kung fu fight. But yeah, the teen characters are just not as compelling as the adults.
I'm a strong agree on this also. Only and I don't think all the scenes with the teens are bad. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's the
Oh, of
Mm-hmm.
scenes
course.
that include students who are not part of the karate world are bad. Like anytime they're at a party, anytime they're at school, or like but any of those scenes that don't add to like the element that has anything to do with karate just didn't do it for me. But I think anytime the kids were interacting with the adults had me fired up for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like Stranger Things, how it's like, okay, some people like it when it's the kids on adventures, some people like the high school characters, some people like Hopper.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you get everybody has their favorite storylines and bits and stuff.
I agree with Mark with the Hawk. If they did a whole movie just with him in it, I would pay top dollar just to see him.
Just 90 minutes of Hawk smashing nerds with cell phone kiosks.
Yes, there's nothing, not a single scene that is boring about that kid. Sometimes you can find, a little annoyance with Miguel with what he does and what he chooses to do. I love Miguel though. But overall, Johnny is my favorite person in the show. Johnny and the Hawk are my favorite people. But Johnny's my favorite adult in the show. It's never a boring scene with him.
How about you, Abby? How do you kind of feel about
Favorite
those characters?
character or
Yeah.
about
No, just like the where your interest lies is it in the younger characters, the
in the
older characters,
generation.
that kind of thing.
I think it actually that's a really good question because I think it's right in between. I think it's at its best, and I think it's its most interesting when it's dealing with intergenerational
I agree,
conflict.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think when you're right, I think when we go all the way with lots of older people, even sometimes with Reese and Johnny, I'm like, okay, okay, I get it. And then when we go to the younger folks, I'm like, I do not care at all. And I think it is completely the most dynamic when it's dealing with the differences in between them.
Yeah, yeah. So before we get into the more technical aspects of the show, like cinematography and score and stuff like that, there's one sequence that I really want to talk about that I personally loved was when Johnny's car gets wrecked again, and he's forced to go on this test drive with Danny. They actually like sit down and have like a fucking conversation like adults, and they actually realize they're not that different from each other, kind of thing. And I think that was actually really, really important for the show to show that they could actually communicate in that way. Um, and the part of me, the thing that I really like too is that they start to actually be vulnerable to each other. Like Danny's like, yeah, I didn't know about your dad, kind of thing. And then Danny talks about like, yeah, I lost the girl too, dude. Like you and me both. We're not neither of us is with her, kind of thing. And I think that was a really, really important part of the show because, like, contrast that to the beginning, right? When Johnny like pulls up to, or excuse me, when Danny pulls up to Johnny's like, "Yo, man, I heard you beat a kid's ass," and like Johnny's like trying to explain, like, "Yo, bro, like he was literally beating the shit out of someone else." She's like, "Nah, man, I know about you. You're Cobra Kai. I see it." It's like, can you fucking talk to him like a normal person?
I loved Johnny's reaction to that. Just the you beating up some kids. And he's like, I didn't beat up those kids. I beat up some asshole. And it's like, fuck yeah, Johnny, get him.
Yeah, I love that whole interaction. Like, oh, you like this music too? I forgot which band was on in the car radio
Yeah,
at the time.
it was like
but
from the '80s, probably.
like,
Yeah,
I love that entire sequence. I totally agree with you, Adam. Like, I thought it added a whole level, a whole dimension to their relationship with each other.
yeah.
And I know in season 2 it develops even more, and I can't wait to talk about that part. But I really appreciate it because I think like this entire time you're watching these two basically live parallel lives in relation to karate, obviously, and the way they feel about it, the way they look at it, and it's just like, damn it, these two just like sat down and talked, like so many things would just like get resolved.
Mm.
I mean, yeah, down to when Johnny's wife's like, "Oh, how about some? Can this happen over some eggs?"
Yeah, yeah. They're about to like throw down. She's like, "Why don't we just like
Prime.
have some food?"
Johnny gets that great moment with Danny's son.
Oh yeah, that was really
Oh,
good
yeah.
too.
My dad was gonna kick your ass.
Also, Amanda like calls Danny out, which I do appreciate.
Yeah, yeah.
She's so good.
I
She's
love
so
her.
good.
She's great. She's very much like the audience surrogate of all of us being like, just be
Comes
adults.
into her own.
Yeah.
Why do you all care so much about karate?
Like
About children's strip mall karate? What is happening?
Amanda like trying to tell her husband like, what the fuck are you doing? You have a business to run. Trying to like chase after this
you
dude.
don't understand, honey. Mr. Miyagi said to wax on and wax off, and she's like, "What the fuck does that mean?" I never watched the Karate Kid. What does that mean? You have to go to work tomorrow.
Amanda is the most normal character in the show. Like
Yeah.
trying to.
She's a very necessary presence.
100%.
Because of that, she's not normal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Trying to bring Danny back to Earth to get his business going. Yeah, she's just like the character that we need for the show because Danny's kind of like lost in his own world, trying to like revive Miyagi-Do, and she's like, "Han, like we have a business to run. Like, what the heck are you doing?"
Yeah. I would 100% agree. I think she's like a critical part of the show that not a lot of people talk about because it's so easy to get wrapped up into the whole Daniel and Johnny kind of dynamic. But moving on to like the kind of technical aspects of the show, obviously this started as a web series, then moved to kind of Netflix. How did you all feel about the cinematography, the way things were shot, things like that?
Phenomenal.
Hold on. I think two people said stuff at the same time. You go first, Padromi, then you can go, Andrew.
I was into it. I really appreciated it. I think as Abby keeps alluding to, like this is all a knock on the '80s and kind of like a head nod towards that entire genre of filming. You see a lot of that, especially like outside the strip mall, especially like also like when they're driving, when Johnny's driving his car. I definitely got like Breakfast Club vibes a lot of times in certain particular scenes, like even down the even down to like kind of like the way whatever's covering the lens in some parts, it definitely even feels a little bit older. Like there are definitely some like tan hints on the lens sometimes, that made it definitely feel a bit more old school, if you will. Um, I honestly I really appreciate even down to the karate bits, right? Like thinking back to like when Kreese at the end, and Johnny are in the dojo together, like I mean, the way that's filmed, right, with the shadow, and the
Yep,
smoke,
the
and
smoke.
it was
Yeah.
all very like, iconic, like fucking like this is a scene, like it's like we're
Very
showing you.
cinematic.
Yeah, it really fucking was. Tangent, I know, I'm sorry, but I liked the way that it was filmed.
No, I was actually gonna add on to that because I was gonna say this looks really sharp for something that started out as a YouTube series. It doesn't look cheap. It looks exactly the level of professional that it should. And the thing that I love about it, both in the way that it's shot and in terms of just the atmosphere, is that it doesn't feel like sanitized.
No.
It doesn't feel watered down. You've got people smoking, Johnny drinks and drives, characters call each other pussy. It doesn't feel like we got to dumb this down or anything. It's got all the rough edges on it, and that gives it a lot of character and texture, and I love it.
Wait, to
It
build
makes it
off of
stand
that,
out.
I completely agree. And I was gonna say, I mean, Adam lived in Orange County, so like for a while, so you know what I'm talking about because it's inland LA.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like this place that's kind of close to a big city, but it also has its own like ideology
Yeah.
and culture and community, which is also very multicultural, which I feel like is reflected in the show of like so many people from
Yeah.
different places and that crossover of how that intersection looks like. And you're talking about how kind of it is kind of dirty. It's kind of lived in. It's a place that has, I think, seen change over time. So I think the production design and the cinematography is really strong
Yeah.
in saying like, hey, remember Karate Kid, but like also like it does look a little dirtier now. Like that's where we are in 2020 or 2018. Like it's what it looks like.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Andrew?
I was just gonna say that they did a phenomenal job with it. It's fun. It's the Karate Kid if it was rated R, because I've heard at least 6 or 7 times when someone said the F bomb. Um, it's hilarious.
Surprised by that. A lot of profanity.
Yeah.
Lots of I was not expecting that much profanity in the show. The first time I heard the F bomb, I was like, "Holy crap!" Like they're really going hard in this. And pussies is probably the most overused word by Johnny in the whole show. Great job on the cinematography.
Yeah, I think like let's be real with ourselves. It's not going to be Roger Deakins. This isn't Hoyt then between Tema being the cinematographer, but it's really good, I think. And to all of your points about the production design, like this isn't shot on like some green screen kind of thing. You could tell like these are real sets, real locations. Very much feels like SoCal, even though I'm sure Abby's way more familiar with that than I am, kind of thing. It feels like that, right? It has a very strong sense of place. Like that plaza, that strip mall. Like I felt like I was actually there. It's like, oh, we're gonna go to the kebab place. We're gonna go to the pawn shop. Which, by the way, the pawn shop owner is fucking hilarious. He's so funny. But like you actually feel like you're there. And I think the show. It has its moments, like we said before, that ending shot of John Kreese, where just like, wow, that's a shot. And there are other times where it's a little basic, you 1-2 camera setup for a conversation. But overall, it's not like you watch it, it's like, wow, I could really see that this is it's showing its budget kind of thing. I never got that feeling, and I think that's a testament to the show. But going into that more a little bit, obviously it's a martial arts show. There's gonna be fights. There's got to be some choreography, and we'll get into a couple of the ones, but the one I want to talk about first is this cafeteria fight. And it's not even like a cafeteria fight. I'm sorry, it's not even a cafeteria. That's like literally a jail fight. Like they went insane in that fight, bro. Like no teachers, nothing. They like went at each other's throats, kind of things. Like it's literally a jail where they fought. And like that goes to my point too, where and this happens. It's more guilty in season 2, but there are times where I'm just like, all right, this is a little too wow for me. Like, I don't know what kind of reality this is in, but this is kind of crazy. But that doesn't mean that the choreography is bad. Actually, I think the choreography in the show, it's definitely not, the Raid kind of thing, but it's still very, very well done.
Yeah, I actually I said this to you on Twitter. Like, I really enjoyed the karate.
Yeah.
By no means am I a aficionado of the arts that are martial, but I will say that, like, as a spectator, as a viewer, like, I thought the choreography was really well done. I thought the kids did a really great job.
Yeah.
In what they were doing. Like, they are all very athletically talented.
Yeah.
And it was really refreshing to kind of like see them really get after it, right? Like, it wasn't a bunch of up close scenes, right, where you see like the arm go. Like,
Right.
these are wide angled shots most of the time in these fights. Like, you got to see the entire like area of fight, like you're playing like a Tekken match, right? Because, like, you have like your 2D stands, and then you had your arena fight, right? Like, and you're kind of going far out, and I really appreciated those views of the fights, and I think that's why I enjoyed it, the karate at least, so much, because I thought it looked really well coordinated.
Mm-hmm.
To build off of that, I was going to say, as someone who is Dueling Arts International certified for stage combat, like, this is a
That's
really
dope.
Yeah, it is dope. It's from one of my things left over from acting.
Abby's an expert in a lot of things, as you can tell,
I
but keep
am.
going.
But I was gonna say, I think they did a really good job of the genre, because you're talking about like a fight scene and how that could be so differently interpreted.
Yeah.
If you're in a fantasy, if you're in a sci-fi, if you're in a romance, I don't know. Like, it just depends on what the genre is, and I think it does a really great job of paying homage to the karate genre and its relationship to cinema. Because I think karate and its history in parallel with cinema has been shown so many times, and I think it does a really good job of, again, paying honor to that and like showcasing how cool it is, in a shot when doing a really cool kick, and it illustrates it while pushing the plot forward. And a fight scene should always push your plot forward and the objectives of the characters, and I think it does that really well. And it doesn't look great.
Yes, Andrew.
Cafeteria Scene was one of my favorite scenes in the whole first season. When Kyler approaches Miguel and he's like, "Oh, you're gonna throw some more lame ass karate at me?"
We all knew what was going to happen, by the way. We
Hell
all
yeah.
knew.
Miguel was like, "It's not lame ass karate. It's Cobra Kai." And he just takes 3 bullies, freaking nails them with the tray. Oh my gosh, I loved that scene. That was probably easily one of my favorite seasons in the whole first season.
What a smart decision to have Miguel get the absolute fuck kicked out of him at the Halloween dance.
Yeah. Poor
'Cause
kid.
That makes an eventual turn where it's like, oh no, he actually knows karate now. So
I mean,
much.
he got his action twice.
Yeah.
It wasn't once; it was twice.
Yeah.
He got beat up outside the store when he first meets. Well, when Johnny first gets involved, and in the Halloween, like, oh my god, so
He gets a little bit of sand. He does like 3 high kicks, and he thinks he could take on a room full of like 8 jocks. And then eventually he does take on a room full of 8 jocks, and we feel like we've progressed. We feel like he's learned something and accomplished something.
I
It's
also
great.
like skeletons. Remember from the original?
Yeah.
yeah, that was a great nod.
Again,
Like, I knew
great
that-
crit
I knew that
nods.
was
Yeah.
coming. I knew that had to be coming. But just the little, like, can't let you go out wearing that.
Yeah.
And then the little lead up to it, it's like, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And then Danny sees him, and he gets even more paranoid. Man, when the show hits, it hits good.
Oh, exactly, man.
It's hard,
It
like-
hits, man. It hits. And I think Mark and Abby both hit on this well. Like, especially that scene in particular, it's kind of illustrative of the show as a whole. Like, they don't just have like a fight scene to have a fight scene. That never happens, kind of thing. If they ever have a fight scene or an action scene, which it doesn't happen every episode, kind of thing. Like, they always kind of space it out, and it always serves a purpose to advance the characters, to advance the story forward. And that makes the show even better. And we've already talked about that scene in the cafeteria. One thing that makes it even better too is that it's not just like they're punching and kicking each other, right? They're dynamic with the environment. They're using the trays. They're jumping on tables, kind of thing, right? The audience is even a factor in it, right? Because not only are people filming, because this is 2020, right? Of course they're going to be filming and not trying to break up the fight. But even then too, there's the characters who are watching, they react, and that actually affects the story. So very, very well constructed. And Padromi brought up a great point too. Is they're all well shot. This isn't no like shaky cam, super zoomed in, like I can't see what's going on kind of thing. Wide shots, you're able to see what's happening. All the hits actually look like they're hitting each other. This isn't like where it looks like clearly they weren't hits or anything like that. All very, very well done. Before we get to the tournament, which has some of the best fights, I think, were there any other fights that kind of stuck out to your minds that you wanted to highlight? Okay, well, I guess we'll talk about the tournament then.
No, it's coming to my mind because like I'm like damn, there's so many good ones because like I think about like and I mentioned this before, but like the first time like Aisha steps into the Cobra Kai gym,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
then even beyond that, it's kind of like the things that you don't see, but the things that you hear, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
the first time like Hawk steps into Cobra Kai, right? Like in his first day, and Johnny's like calling him out, and he's like making fun of his cleft lip.
yeah,
He's like, you can't get that thing, whatever, and all these things. And he leaves to the back of the room. Miguel goes following him. Aisha's like, all right, he goes, Aisha, handle them. And you hear the pounding that's happening in the other room, but that moment's the shaping of Hawk, right? Like it's the fight that you didn't see that was happening in the other room when Aisha is like kicking everyone's ass while Johnny and Miguel are talking in the office. Like that was the evolution of Cobra Kai. Like, that was like the kickoff point, right? Like, this is all after obviously like Miguel gets into that huge fight, and like all those things are, I don't know, because like there are fights beyond just what we see on camera, and and that includes like all the mental struggles that everyone goes through and things like that. But I don't know, man. Like it's hard to single out one fight in at least season one, mainly because I think the fights that go down in season two are just so much more higher stakes, if
insane.
you will.
Yeah, hmm
But even looking back to the tournament, right? Like, Aisha goes into the tournament. Her first bout goes really well, and then in her second fight, like, you kind of see her get defeated, but like you were like, well, you knew they all couldn't make it, and
Yeah.
obviously like it set up to like this really perfect point where like it's two more Cobra Kai left, and then then there's Robbie, and then 1-on-1. So I don't know if the one-on-one fights were necessarily like as impactful as the fights that went down in season two. So it's kind of harder for me to say.
very well said. What about the rest of you? How did you feel about either some of the fights in the season or even some of the fights that you saw at that last tournament? No one has. Uh-oh. Andrew? I can't hear you, brother. Oh, go ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead. Yeah.
I hear him talking.
Yeah. Oh, Andrew. Yeah, I see you lighting up, man, but I don't hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, there he
To be
is.
honest,
There he is.
yeah, I think I had some mic problems. Um, yeah, in all honesty, like, I think the best fight scenes were in the cafeteria. I really did like the Johnny fight scene with him protecting his car. I thought that was really well
Yeah,
done.
against the motorcycle guys. Yeah.
Yes, I thought it was hilarious, and it was really sad too seeing what they did to his car. But the tournament, in all honesty, is where the fights were for me. In season two, I feel like there was so much action. I know we're not talking about it tonight, but I feel like there was more action fight scenes in season two. But the tournament was probably some of my favorite fight scenes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one thing I really love about the tournament is that it's different in the sense that it's one-on-one and in a controlled environment. I think first and foremost that creates a different dynamic to the fights. I think it gives a lot of good exposure to actual martial arts competition as well. And again, like we've said before, it's a throwback to the first movie, right? This is how the first movie ended, right? So it only feels kind of natural in a way that we end here as part of the first season of Cobra Kai.
I'm also like really impressed with, in the grand scheme of things, how well Cobra Kai did in that tournament, considering they're not taught to get points
Mm.
in the way they fight. They're taught to like just obviously like knock somebody out and take them out. So it was really impressive to see even the self control that they gained, um, barring Hawk, um, you know, throughout like their tournament run. Like they really went after it. Also, what's this kid? Bart, the little kid.
Yeah.
Bert. That fight was pretty freaking funny though at the tournament.
Yeah.
No,
Two
I
of the
want.
smallest kids.
Sorry, what was that, man?
No, I'm saying two of the smallest kids going at it. It's hilarious.
Dude, he was just like, you know what? Screw it. I'm Cobra Kai. I'm not afraid of anything. I loved when the Hawk was just like, when he won the first round and he just like rips his shirt off and his girlfriend's like, oh my gosh, he's so hot. Like,
Doesn't it play like a bird sound or something?
Yeah.
I freaking love, dude. Like, there needs to be a Hawk movie. I freaking love this guy so much.
Man, I love how one of the biggest laughs for me of season 1 was I forget what this character even was called. I think he only showed up in this episode, but it was like the former champ, like the returning champion guy,
Yeah.
and it's like this big pretty boy, and he does this backflip or whatever. And he takes the mic and he's like, "Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a moment of silence so that we might achieve peace and equality in our time?" And then it like immediately cuts away to like Cobra Kai people having character
Yo,
development.
and he was the one with the super supportive mom too, who was like screaming.
Yeah.
He just comes out. He's like, "It just really means a lot to me." And then it hard cuts away. And when that cut happened, I lost it.
And didn't the Hawk take that guy down? If I'm
Yeah,
correct?
I think Hawk beats him. He was the one that got
No.
Hawk disqualified, right?
It was either a Hawk or Miguel, because Miguel and Robbie faced off in the finals.
No, Hawk got DQ'd on Robbie.
Okay,
Right.
Hawk got DQ'd on Robbie. Then
Yeah.
one of them.
Oh, Robbie. Was it Miguel who beat him then?
Miguel's the one who beat Robbie.
No.
No,
Miguel
the
beat the
big guy.
reigning champion.
Yeah, that guy.
Miguel and
Yeah,
Robbie
I
faced off in
remember.
the finals, I'm pretty
Really
sure.
important, because the fact
Yeah.
that he starts giving this big sappy speech and then it cuts away so that the characters we like can have character development, and then he gets beaten by Cobra Kai. I was like, that's funny.
Yeah, the
But I
announcer.
also love how. Oh,
Sorry,
you
what
could
was
go. No, go for it.
The
Because I was gonna
announcer
go on.
grabbed the mic. He's like, okay, let's get this over with.
I think my favorite thing about the tournament though is how it plays on any kind of meta awareness that you have.
Yeah.
Just because like the tournament is such a big part of the original Cobra Kai or Karate Kid. So going into it, it's like, okay, like before this even happens, you know it's going to come down to a Cobra Kai kid and it's going to come down to Robbie. That's how this is going to work. But from that point on, you could looking at it from like a meta standpoint, trying to predict what is going to happen character arc wise, it would make just as much sense for Robbie to have won the tournament as it would for Miguel. And from a certain point, you would be just as happy either way. I mean, not me, I was rooting for Miguel.
No,
but
absolutely not.
Still, it's like, okay, I could see this would be a complete narrative if Robbie won the tournament. It would be a complete narrative if Miguel won the tournament. I wouldn't feel cheated either way. And that's what made it that's what took it from another level to where I'm not just sitting here watching this show, I'm watching this tournament. And that's what made it such an effective season finale for me, at least.
That's a really good point, and I actually love that whole point you just made, Mark, because like, you know, when you're watching that tournament, I literally felt like I was genuinely at a tournament, watching like fight after fight, and like going, oh snap, he did, oh snap, oh,
Right?
you know, and like I was getting into it, like I was watching like a full blown tournament going, and like I was definitely like, I was sitting up for that whole thing. Like I normally watch my shows laying down. I was like up in my seat, like staring at my monitor, like, you know, getting really into these fights. And I thought the build up was really well done, leading to the end. And they did it just like they did in the Karate Kid, just exactly the same way.
Yeah. I mean, episode 10 is my favorite episode, but Abby, did you have anything that you wanted to say about that final tournament?
Because I think it has a lot of layers, but I think the most important part of the tournament is the way in which Miguel wins, as we know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it does a really excellent and it's a great arc for the first season because it shows, I think, Johnny's worst fears.
Yeah.
And that's all he is he's his mistakes, which he sees repeated in Miguel in that final episode. So I think it does a really good job of illustrating that and the catharsis that comes after that, where he realizes, oh my god, what did I do to this boy? And we get to see that.
it's a great like Pyrrhic victory for Johnny, and it's a great like well-meaning failure for Danny. Both of our protagonists get what they need.
Yeah.
It does a
Yeah, just to
terrific
add on.
job. Go ahead, Andrew. I just said it does a terrific job. Go ahead.
Okay. Just to add on to your point, Abby, yeah, like the part that made me like feel bad for Johnny the most was like he's seeing his son, and he's trained Miguel for so long. Now he's seeing his son versus Miguel, who he trained, and he taught Miguel strike first, strike hard, and then you see the no mercy part when Miguel strikes at his injured shoulder,
Yeah.
and Johnny's like he knows that he failed as a dad and he failed as a mentor and thing and then he knows that things need to change from then on, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just so I just like that scene a lot. It was very powerful for me.
That's how he reaches that epiphany, and really that's again what we said before. Really, the show is about Johnny evolving and becoming better, and like he fucks up along the way, but he's trying, kind of thing, right? Like at this point, at least he's not eating bologna for breakfast anymore, right? He realizes what he has to do, and like how the consequences of his own actions is leading to something that I think Abby said earlier, how it proliferates through the new generation, kind of thing, right? How it ultimately damages them. And I think that's really important. I think it also makes him realize how much he loves his son, even though he was clearly very mad when he found out that Danny was training Robbie. And I think that scene where he reaches out to his son after the match is over and like kind of apologizes and tries to make peace. I think that was a super important moment for him too. And I'm really think that was a great way to kind of set up season 2, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. And I think the obviously that last scene with John Kreese was incredible. But I think before we get to like these whole final thoughts and ratings kind of thing, was there anything else that in particular you guys wanted to discuss before we kind of wrap things up?
I just want to add to one point because I really like what Abby said about like how Miguel won,
Yeah.
and the importance of that. Because and you kind of alluded to this in your statement also when you talked about like when Johnny went over to Robbie after the fight. Like I felt so bad for Johnny for winning. Like you saw it on his face, the disappointment. He didn't even celebrate, right? Like Miguel sitting there with the trophy in his hand, like hugging Johnny, like with such excitement.
Yeah.
All the kids at Cobra Kai cheering, celebrating, and then you just see Johnny's face, just of like disappointment, let down. Like although everything that he's worked for, everything that he's been working so hard for, and he achieved it. He brought Cobra Kai back, and in the end, he still felt like Danny got the better of him. That
Yeah.
shit blew my mind.
Yeah.
Like we said, when the writing hits in this show, it hits hard. It don't miss, kind of thing. Um, did anyone else have anything else they want to kind of add before we wrap things up?
I just want to say that when you go into the show, whoever listens to this podcast, if you're starting the show or already watching this, um, I think this is a really powerful show to just to relate to the real world that we're in, just like how people are and like what they're going through, because no one really knows what someone's going through. Like you get to see what Johnny went through as a kid, what he's going through as an adult, and it's just good. It's just a good thing to give people the benefit of the doubt, to see them change and to give them a second chance. I think the second chance thing is a really big model for this first season, because everybody pretty much gets a second chance in their life, and Johnny definitely proves that he's redeeming himself.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Anyone else before we get to those final thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a really fun show with a lot of violence and a lot of swearing and a lot of fucking around, but it's got a lot of heart to it. And I
Yeah.
think that really makes the difference. It is not a cynical cash grab soft reboot, and I think it's the fact that they cared enough about it to make it good really works in its favor. and sets it apart from the crowd.
Definitely. I mean, you're already there, Mark. So anything else you want to say before you give that final rating? Just, go right ahead and we'll start the final ratings.
Nothing much. I've said just about everything I needed to, I think, about season 1. I'm hyped to talk about season 2, because boy, oh boy, is there a lot to cover there.
Whew.
But, overall, season 1, Cobra Kai, I liked it a lot. I definitely recommend it. If I had to put it on the spill scale, I'd say very strong full price.
Wow. Wow. Okay. All right. All right. What about you, Andrew? Final thoughts and ratings.
Final thoughts. Okay, so like I said at the beginning, just to reiterate, it takes a lot for me to invest in a show, especially a show that's on Netflix. I'm not a big fan of Netflix series, but this show, whoever's listening, please just watch episode 1. I guarantee you, when you finish episode 1, when you go to use the bathroom and then come back to your couch, you're already on episode 7. Like, it goes so quick. It's fun. There's not a single boring scene. It's enjoyable. It's aggressive. It's just hilarious, and I give it an 11 out of 10. Easily on the top 10 list for myself of best shows I've seen in my whole life. In all honesty, love the show.
And there you have it. Padromi, the biggest Karate Kid fan here. Tell us what your final thoughts are. Final thoughts and rating.
Final thoughts and ratings. Season 1 exclusively here.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I really enjoyed it. Nostalgia factor, like plus 1,000 on that scale. Like, I had a lot of feelings come back. Having watched all of the Karate Kids. Overall rating, I would say 9.8 out of 10.
Wow.
I won't give it 10 out of 10 just because, like, we got to talk about season 2. But, like, 9.8 out of 10, season 1, fantastic, must watch.
Okay. All right. And Abby, tell us final thoughts and ratings.
I do. It kind of sounds like an echo chamber, but I have to go with A for doing a grading scale. It is not an A plus because of some of those pacing issues we talked about. But I think it is the best of any transmedia property that has done a sequel in the past decade. I honestly think it does the most justice to its original script, its original characters, and the original ideals that formed the themes of what it set out to do. I think it does the best job of it of any other piece of media I can think of right now. I think it's funny, and I think it is a little campy, but as long as you acknowledge that when you go in, you're going to have such a fun time, and it's going to make you look at characters and your other old films that you like in different lights. And I think that's the real strength of this, is you're not going to look at, if you go back and watch the original Karate Kid, you are going to look at it in a completely new direction. So yeah, A.
All right, well, there you have it. It's interesting because I didn't think I would end up in this review seemingly being the person who liked the show least, considering how much I liked the show. But I think we've already spent so much time talking about this. I think the parts that I really want to reiterate is that the show is an amazing, like, kind of piece of media alone, and it's only better because of its ties to the original Karate Kid. And I think we already talked about the choreography, the writing, and everything like that. All of it is pretty good, I would say. Overall, for me, as I've said before, I really just hate the trope of just like everyone meeting and like kind of like, oh, well, you're here too, and that leading into conflicts. Like, the writing at times is amazing, but those few times where I felt like it was really bad is what really brought the show down for me. I'd still give it a matinee kind of thing. It just didn't quite hit that full price for me, but it's still an amazing show that I really recommend to everyone. And I really want to just give a huge shout outs to everyone, in the production and who made the show kind of happen. Hats off to you. You clearly knocked it out of the park, and I think no one was kind of expecting this. And I can't wait to talk about season 2 because even more crazy shit happens in season 2. So you can stay tuned for that. But it's going to be a matinee for me. Sorry to disappoint everyone, but it's not like I don't love the show, because I do love the show. Before we kind of close off, I'll let everyone kind of give any shout outs they want to give or words they want to say to the people. If you want to throw out your socials, feel free. And go ahead. Yeah, we'll start with you, Mark.
Yeah, no, I don't have any social media anymore. Don't follow me. but maybe that'll change someday. As always, whole lot of fun. Glad to be here. Hope to be back.
Hell yeah. All right, Andrew, how about you?
Shout out to my boy Austin. You got to watch the show. Jake, I know you were in New Jersey for quite a while. I hope you come back and watch the show with me. And shout out to my girlfriend, who I'm trying to invest to watch this show. I just watched the movie with her and trying to get her to watch season 1 all over with me again. So, yep.
Hell yeah, man. Padromi?
No real shout outs. I'm at Padromi on Twitter. I don't tweet too much, but yeah, I had a blast with you guys today. Adam, thanks for having me on.
Of course, brother.
Hope to get to do more of these with you soon.
Of course. Abby?
Me, yeah, I'm at Abby _Sherlock, like Sherlock Holmes on all social media. But just like big gratitude and thanks y'all for having me here. I love deconstructing movies and talking about them because I think they matter, and I am very happy to find fellow who agree, and we can talk about all the silly and fun stuff that movies make us feel.
Hell yeah, amen. Shout outs to all the people who joined me today. Some really awesome conversations I think were had. I love that we were able to deconstruct this show and to talk about some of the really, really amazing parts of it. If you want to follow me, of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Adam_Bomb, BOMMB. If you want to keep up with whatever I'm doing, whether it be this or Ambox stuff, you know where to find me. Of course, this episode is going to be uploaded to Jake's channel, so make sure you subscribe there. And stay tuned because I think it's safe to say that all of us are very eager to discuss Season 2, so stay tuned for that. But no, other than that, take care of yourselves and peace.